Welcome to Warriors Over 50. I'm Jonathan McGuinness, and I'm delighted to say I have a guest that I have been following for quite a while now. And the main reason is some people say people wear their heart on the sleeve. But I have a feeling about this guy, even though I'm only watched him for a couple of months, he didn't always have his heart on his sleeve. And that rawness of this sort of change from maybe hidden it in his jumper, his back pocket, or somewhere else, and bringing that out to the front, this sort of raw honesty and transparency has been inspiring to me. I'm looking to do my own journey at the same time. So I want to give and receive energy of integrity, of honesty. And I think it's a huge area that this guy, he's captured it somehow. And let me introduce you to Paul. Paul, welcome on board for the podcast. I appreciate your time, sir.
Hello, sir. How you doing? We've been talking for a while, and we've finally got to do this. So yeah, it's my privilege, man. Let's have some fun on here.
Absolutely. So, what I'd like to start with, maybe I'll start with my journey and how I came across you. I'm in the process, actually, I mapped it out yesterday. I'm 460 days as of today on a health journey, just over a year, 3 months. I've lost 15 to 16 kilos, but more than anything, and I think this is what attracted me to you, Paul, was I've learned to become more honest with myself. And it started by, I know this might sound stupid, simple. It started by being honest with the app that I count my calories with. And I wasn't. I used to eat Snicker bars, Mars bars, overeat, have no limits of any sort. But I would sort of deny that to myself and honestly just lie to myself about what I was doing. And food was an area where I grew up. I celebrated, everything was around food, but the idea of having less of it or having limits just wasn't even in my contemplation. But the reward I'm finding now, and this is where I sort of found you inspiring, was I've started being more honest. And if I listen to you, particularly on Facebook, that seems to come out every day. So I guess my question is, I imagine you're on a journey, Paul. Where did that start and how did you come to being so rawly honest?
Mm. um, a super quick answer is having no choice but to do that. I think you've kind of said it there. Our journey sounds quite similar. Yours is food, mine was booze. Really, booze was my coping mechanism. So, shall I give you the slightly longer version of the story, or what
Oh,
should we do?
absolutely. Please go
Yeah,
ahead, yeah.
cool. So when I was younger, I never quite felt like I fitted. I always felt like I had certain opinions, and a lot of people didn't agree with them. Now, when I look back, it's easy to say, well, that's okay. We're just all entitled to our own opinion. We're all entitled to be different, transparent, authentic, have integrity, all these good words. But I spent years and years and years, and most of my life actually on that path, that journey, that search for. Well, if I'm honest, like I don't know what I was searching for by the end of it, right?
Yeah,
And that's one thing actually I want to say there, that we're searching for purpose, we're searching for this, we're searching for that. Sometimes it's just about cracking on and just doing your thing and following the path, and not specifically searching for something. Because if you just put out the right intentions and you operate as the best version of yourself, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, lower self, higher self, if you do that, um, these good things will come to you. So basically, my situation got bad. I mean, I was, 6 years ago, I was in a very, very dark place. I was surrounded. I'm going to say surrounded by muppets. I don't mind saying that.
yeah.
People that I didn't agree with. There was a lot of politics in my role or in my company. A lot of backstabbing, a lot of untruths. I think is the word we started with, and a lot of BS. And I was dying inside. If we're talking about authenticity and all that, there was a serious feeling of misalignment, unhappiness, unfulfilled,
Yeah.
um, and I nearly said self-loathing there, and I've not used that before,
Okay.
because I didn't blame myself, but I guess there's there's part of you that when you're looking at yourself from the outside, that you need to take responsibility, and with that, you need to be honest in the mirror with it. So I got to the place where I was drinking up to 2 bottles of wine of the night. That was my coping mechanism. I would say that I was losing my identity. That's a big thing. Didn't know
Yeah.
who the hell I was anymore. I was busy. I was almost busy trying to be who they wanted me to be, and that really wasn't me. I wasn't. It was like is it a round peg in a square hole, or the other way around, whichever way
Yeah.
around it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Felt like that. So I was drinking more and more. Got to 20 stone. Felt suicidal at a certain point. Would I have actually killed myself? Well, I haven't, so I'm still here.
Can I
Um,
ask you about that, Paul? As in,
yeah,
what are the thoughts that you go through? Now, suicidal is one part of it. Okay, well, I want to not be here. Or I'm not saying you want
yeah,
to, but you're kind of thinking about not being here.
yes.
But what are the action? I have a few ideas, but I'd love to hear your raw thoughts on
Yeah.
what is it you're thinking when you're thinking, I'd rather not be here.
What I'm thinking, or was thinking, is that it would be better if I wasn't here. Um, there was
Better for
no
who?
better for me and other people, both. It was so. It's almost like I felt like I wasn't contributing
Yeah,
authentically. This is the authentic thing, right? It's all
absolutely.
right. It's all right coasting along and doing a role to pay your bills. But if there's nothing more than that, if that's all you're doing, if there's no real purpose and real kind of strong reason or why to what you're doing, then you're just coasting along. So, yeah, so it's those kind of thoughts of it would just be easier if I wasn't here, and it would be less painful as well because you're thinking and operating from a place of pain in those situations, right? And it's that thing of people only normally change when that level of pain is strong enough or high enough, right? Um, and that's where I was. The pain was obviously extreme, and that was my moment of, we kind of talked about that before, of
Sure.
me driving that car fast and just wishing that the car would crash and I would die, But it doesn't kind of happen like that, does it? There's tears streaming down my face,
Yeah.
frustration, anger, disappointment in others, but also disappointment in myself, which has to be the main thing. Um, I rang the Samaritans. This was 5:30 in the morning, on the way to boot camp, which I've been going there for 8 years. So this was 6 years ago. We were going there
Yeah.
at that time. Pulled up in the car park. I rang the Samaritans. I had a quick conversation, probably 10 minutes. I don't really remember what was discussed, if I'm honest, but I just knew at that point, this is it. This is my lowest point, and I need to do something critical now. And it turns out that I left corporate. I lost 6 stone within 9 months or so, and I quit booze. And I can't remember which one I did first, whether I quit booze or left corporate. I think I quit booze first because I quit just before January, and I
So
left my
what
role 7th of January,
what did when you
2019.
called the Samaritans and you hit that lowest point, you
Yeah,
started then making dramatic changes, whether it was
yeah,
booze or leaving the
yeah,
job or whichever one doesn't really matter. It
yeah.
sounds like at that point you made some sort of decision, whether it was conscious or unconscious. What do you think that decision was, Paul?
To change every fucking thing. That
Yeah.
was the decision. Yeah, that
Yeah.
basically everything needed to change if I want to change, and started with the big decisions of, as I say, booze did go a little bit first, a few days, a week or two,
Yeah.
and then that then obviously gave me clarity to be able to look at everything else and just say, you know what, I really, really, really don't enjoy what I'm doing, and it's dragging me down. So then that was the next big decision, and once you've made this decisions that big, that
Yeah.
quickly, like that, the rest of it is quite easy, if I'm honest.
You start gathering momentum then, do you?
Yeah, yeah, it's like, well, and like, I didn't intend to mention Goggins, but Goggins talks about cookie jar. He talks about, your
Yeah.
previous accomplishments. And yeah, once you've done some really big life-changing decisions like that, everything else, you add it in the cookie jars, another cookie, another cookie, another cookie, and yeah, and And it reminds me actually that I ended up doing a one pager of accomplishments, to remind myself of what I've achieved, what I was about, what I was doing, what the reason why I'm doing it.
Fantastic.
I know we're obviously on the top of the list is quitting booze, and then you do a date stamp as well because you wanna make it sort of monumental, don't you? Quit booze, left corporate, and as I say, the rest of it, I just went on this a long self development and healing journey, which I'm still on, still a student.
Yeah,
There's no end to this journey. There's no destination. You've got to enjoy the process. If you spoke to me 6 years ago, there's no way I'd be using that language, but it really is. It's about enjoying every single moment, like us here now in the present on a podcast, just doing our thing, thinking about nothing else.
absolutely.
So yeah,
I, you're making me think that that moment after the Samaritan call when you said, I'm just going to change fucking everything.
yeah,
After that, you told me a couple of things. Okay, I'll change my relationship with booze. I'll change my relationship with work. And you started building momentum. And now you're the honest guy that I see almost every day on
yeah,
Facebook.
yeah,
And sort of that was different decisions and building momentum and expanding as a person. It kind of makes me think that that's sort of like the eye in a portal. And so there were decisions you made afterwards that expanded you. But then it also makes me think that before that, there were decisions you made that were shrinking you. And they're the symptoms of sort of coming to that point where you have to change, or
yeah,
you even do what you didn't do,
yeah,
thank God, and you're still here.
yeah.
And could you bring us back to the Paul who was, what type of decisions were you making before that crucial decision of I'm going to change everything? What type of decisions might people who are even listening now be making that's shrinking them, that's bringing them to a place where they might think, oh, the world is better off without me, or I'm better
Yeah.
off not here? What are those type
Yeah.
of decisions?
The type of decisions they'll be making is survival. You're in survival. You're in fight or flight. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
probably desperately unhappy. You're probably, as I said, you're fighting or fleeing every single day. Your mind is chaotic. You've probably got a coping mechanism, and you're making short-term, instant gratification decisions to get your next fix of dopamine or adrenaline or sedation, as my American and my Canadian clients call it. They call it
Okay.
sedation, as in numbing yourself,
Yeah.
uh, escape. So the decisions, that type of decisions I was making back then were low vibe, low level decisions, survival, fight or flight, for sure. When
Yeah.
you're in such a state like that, your mind isn't working properly. Low level decisions, short term decisions, instant gratification. Where am I going to get my next fix from? The dopamine fix. It could be drugs. For me, it wasn't drugs. For me, it was booze. Was the
Yeah.
coping mechanism. Um, and wrong decisions. If we're going to take ownership, is making the wrong decisions. And the problem is, there's then a catalogue of that. There's then a spiral of that, if you will. And you talked about shrinking yourself. Yeah, I mean, your existence will shrink and shrink and shrink, and your self confidence, your trust in yourself, self love, all of that will also shrink because you're not operating at a good level. You're going to trust yourself less and less and less because you're disappointing yourself. You're making poor decisions. So yeah, it's a downward spiral, and it's going nowhere fast until, as I say, you make that one or two big decisions that you're afraid of making, and they're the ones you're running away from. They're the ones that you should be making. You should be quitting the booze. You should be um, quitting the food or reducing the
Taking
food.
responsibility. Yeah.
Exactly, and we all know what those one or two big key things. Do you know the honest truth as well? Some people are in the wrong relationship.
Yeah.
Relationships are hard. I was talking to a guy earlier about marriage, and relationships are hard. You've got to keep working at it. But I get clients come on board sometimes that they didn't actually come on with a relationship issue, but when we've unraveled it, when we've unpacked it, actually, sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes that is the one key thing, that they're with the wrong person, and they're almost guilty or feeling that they should, a sense of duty, and then they're looking everywhere else to find excuses or reasons for why they're feeling like why they're feeling, and actually it's to do with a relationship. So
I have an idea, Paul, and it sounds like you're aligned, but I might just use a different set of words. Is I
Mm,
think when we're born, we have integrity, like we're a whole human being.
yeah,
But then when we do certain things, like
yeah,
if we lie, and lying could be even saying yes to somebody when we really want to say no. It doesn't mean that you're manipulating anybody, or it can mean that as well. But when we're lying, a little piece of us comes away from our core part and we shrink. And to maintain that satellite takes an awful lot of energy. And the more of those yeses when we should say no's or lies, we shrink our core self and we've loads of satellites that we're trying to make lies that we're trying to maintain, or we're Mr. Nice Guy, or whatever else it is, that eventually that core of us has so little energy that that's when we get to a point like what you're talking about. It's just a
mm,
theory now. And it's kind of like
yeah, yeah,
lies and doing things when you don't really want to do them. Whereas if you're
yeah,
authentic, and you
yeah,
say yes or
yeah,
no, and doesn't mean you have to be right or wrong, but you say what you really think or really
yeah,
believe, you don't shrink who you are. So I think to get back after your portal, you start doing that. So how does that
yeah,
resonate with you as a sort
yeah.
of a
So,
thought?
rather than lies, I'd probably call it untruths
Sure.
because I don't think you're intentionally lying, are you? You're just not being authentic to yourself and to others. Um, and what comes in there as well for me is people pleasing. You know, it's over half of my clients are people pleasers, and how I know because we do a test, a personality test as soon as they start, and there's four choices. We've talked about this. We're both
Yeah.
rebels, aren't we? Apparently,
Yeah, you gave me the test last week,
we're,
and
we're both rebels. Yeah,
I'd say I was a rebel most of my life, and then I'm
yeah,
I'm trying to go one other path called a questioner, but I thought it was
yeah,
a
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
simple but fantastic, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it gives you a steer. It gives you a steer on people's motivations, like internal and external motivations. And so the challenge with the people pleaser, as I said, more than half of my clients are people pleaser, and the challenge is that they struggle. And I'm being general here, but this is the typical thing of
Sure.
they struggle to have internal motivation, and they're more motivated by making other people happy, people pleasing. You know, so they're trying to do good by other people, but then meanwhile, what happens? They're burning out themselves because they're putting themselves at the bottom of the list all the time. You know, they're giving to everybody, doing for everybody else. You know, is my wife happy? Are the kids happy? Is my boss happy? Is my neighbor happy? That person's asked me for a favor. I always say yes. I never say no. You know,
Yeah,
and those could be classed as untruths as well because it's
absolutely.
you're just not
Absolutely.
being authentic or setting boundaries. I think is a thing as well. You know that people are say like a yes man, isn't it? You know, and
Sure.
that's only going one way. That's only like he's probably the guy who's then taking a coping mechanism because he's not telling the truth and facing the thing in the mirror, right?
Yeah. And then I guess my question is, and both you and me in different ways started turning the dial. So it was like people pleasing to, I'm going to say, taking care of myself more. So if that meant taking care of myself more meant people pleasing a little bit less, I'm kind of doing that. I wouldn't say it's anything extreme. I'm just turning the dial a little
Yeah,
bit more towards that.
yeah.
How did that happen for you? Like, in essence, you said the extreme case, but then even when you made that decision, you didn't just turn the dial. You looked like you flipped a switch, as we say.
Yeah, I've got another phrase of be selfish to be selfless. Yeah. And I'm going to say that again be selfish to be selfless. Because
I
when I
don't quite
first
get
said,
it, so you're going to have to explain that one to me.
sure. And a lot of my new clients don't get it either. So, what I'm talking about is if you think of your priorities and if you think of who are you prioritizing first, as I say, family, boss, kids, everything like that, you're at the bottom. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
you're the last resort, you're the last priority. The problem is you're then not doing anything for yourself in terms of fun, in terms of taking care of yourself. Oh, that's all right. You know, I'll be okay. I'll prop everything up. Um, so to be selfish, to be selfless, to be extreme with someone who's a really, really, really far out people pleaser, if someone who's really just can't say no, the
Sure.
type of language I use with them is to be selfish, to be selfless. So I want you from today to say no to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Say no. Start to condition your brain to say no to everything, and then put your own questions or filters before it becomes a yes. Yeah. So we're trying to recondition the brain to not say yes to everything like you have been doing. Yeah. Um, because in that respect, then they feel selfish because they're not used to it, right? I see even you've got a question mark in your eyes there.
Well, yeah,
So
yeah. It's kind of like I get it, but I imagine if you're people pleasing all the time, to say no to everything suddenly is like dropping a social nuclear bomb, right? It's kind of
100%,
like
100%.
and so and maybe there's no easy way to do it is,
Yeah,
and I think the people closest to you would even be the ones that would have the most issues because they're
yeah,
used to dealing with you in a certain way. So
yeah,
I'm just curious to, because you've however many clients, you must get feedback on how do different people approach that people pleaser to stepping into the new world, even if it's just baby steps
yeah,
to sort of putting up boundaries first, even
yeah,
more than saying
yeah,
no.
yeah,
How do they
yeah.
do that?
So if I reframe it a little bit,
Please.
when I'm asking them to say no, I'm talking in their own mind. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not literally saying say no to your missus, say no to everybody. I'm talking about the thought process inside the mind. So I'm
Okay.
talking about when something comes in, a request of or whatever comes in, um, something you'd normally automatically say yes to, say no in your mind first, and then have one or two sort of pre-qualifying questions before it comes a yes in your own mind. And as I say, I know it's extreme, but I don't expect the person to say no all the time. I just expect them to start to recondition the brain to just challenge what comes in and rethink it. Yeah, rethink the
Sure.
process rather than just automatically saying yes. So on that basis, with my experience of what then happens, is that at least then if they say no, let's say 10% of more of the time than they did, that then means they've got more time and energy for themselves. Yeah. And the selfless bit, like be selfish to be selfless, the
Yeah.
selfless bit is that everybody else impacts even more anyway, because they get the better version of you because you've got more time, more energy, more body battery. You're filling your own cup first, if you will. That's the phrase.
Absolutely. So let me take your example, Paul, since we have you
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
How were you not filling your cup and filling others? Or were you really filling them? Or were you just sort of contaging them with the same sort of energy you had?
Oh,
Versus today, I can see it, but I'd love you
yeah,
to explain, the Paul now and how your day feels
yeah,
versus the Paul who didn't have that energy, putting everybody else first. Yeah, and I'm not saying you're a full people pleaser, but like that sort of, not making decisions in favor of yourself, but and maybe not taking responsibility and using coping mechanisms. Give us
yeah.
an image of old Paul versus the Paul we have today.
Well, old Paul was 20 stone, 127 kilos,
Wow.
drinking up to two bottles of wine a night, deeply unhappy, which is probably the more important thing, when we're talking about ourselves. Um, and yeah, I mean that was how he was, and he wasn't filling anything. He wasn't filling any cup. Yeah, he was just juggling 15 things at once all of the time. Yeah, literally
Yeah.
all of the time. So even by the time he goes to bed, he's exhausted. He's not thinking clearly. His brain is chaotic. He has no control over anything that's happening. Um, and yeah, and he's then going to bed half pissed. I think I said to you before. He then goes to bed with a pen and paper just to offload his thoughts. Um, so at least he can have some sleep. But then he's only having a 4 or 5 hours sleep. He's then on the emails and the phone again the following morning.
Hmm.
He then tries to go to boot camp um, with a skin full the night before, so heart attack waiting to happen. But in simple terms, like he's broken, he's burnt out, he can't give anymore, and he can't, you know. So yeah, it's like an empty battery 24/7. and the whole spiral then continues. The poor decisions, the short-term decisions, all of that. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, the you right now, how you're obviously creating more energy for yourself. How do you create that? And you're not only creating it just for yourself now, you're sharing it with others and you're having an impact. So how did you go to an energy creator, I'll call it, from that old Paul that was there?
Strong boundaries, number one. That's the first thing. And what I mean by that, so not everyone's a morning person, but I've
Sure.
always been a morning person. I think I said to you before that I ran news agents when I was a kid. Like when I was my
Okay.
first manager job was opening a news agent at 5 o'clock paper round. So I'm a morning person. So what that then means is the first few hours of the morning, certainly up till 9 o'clock, I'm not available. Yeah, I'm not available. And then it's my privilege to get up at 4 o'clock, which I'm doing at the moment. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So technically, and it's not always like this at all, but technically I've then got 5 hours there to do what I want. And before I'm going to say this lovingly, before the world gets at me. Yeah.
Sure.
The demands, the requests, and the whole point of all of this is to then, when you are engaging with everybody else, you've got a full battery. We look at all the stats on the Garmin watch, and one thing is called body battery.
Yeah.
And my aim is to try and start the day as close to 100% on a daily basis. That's my sort of personal challenge. So I'm filling my own cup first, and then when I'm engaging with clients, and everybody else, I'm bang on. I'm happy. I'm satisfied. I've filled my cup. I'm full of energy, and it's almost like you then can't things then can't possibly go wrong because you're set up to take so much. You're set up to,
I'd
you know,
even
s-
love to give an example, Paul, this is take two of this podcast. And I
mm,
wanted to say why I had a technical issue, recording didn't work. And to be honest, when I did it, I was so pissed off because I thought we had a great conversation in take one. I was
mm.
kind of, oh, well, will I say it to Paul? How quickly will I say it to him? What, da, 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 da. So eventually then I said, Paul, I'm having an issue with the recording. And what I loved was, you responded, you didn't react, and you went, because it's also an hour of your time as much as an hour of my time, which is precious, the most precious thing we have. And the fact that you took it with such grace and said, okay, well, we can figure it out, and then we rescheduled, it shows that you have a buffer of energy to be able to manage things where a lot of people are going through their day reacting to every little
Yeah,
thing.
big time.
And for me, one, I was just pure relief. But secondly, it showed me the energy that you had, that you could take it and then go, okay, well, let's do something about it. And then we sort it out this week. And that says a lot to me, Paul. So it's not just this conversation on the podcast. We had where I messed up, you took it, and we did it, and then we figured something out. And that's like, not everybody can do that because they're living in such, and this had nothing to do with money. This was our time, and they live in such a mindset of scarcity that when any little thing happens, if it was another person, they could be shouting at me or this, that, or the other. And not that it would have helped, but that might have been the case. Whereas
Mm.
we had a bit of a laugh, and you probably took the piss out of me a little bit,
No,
which I
whatever.
was perfectly ready
What
for. But it was
you
kind of
know
like,
why I
that's a
take the piss?
demonstration.
Yeah, I take the piss lovingly because I've been there. I've been there myself, and I trust me. And I think we then agreed that we had something else in common as well as being rebels. Also, shit at technology. I can tell you straight away. Yeah, I've employed an admin lady for a long time now to help me with all these different things because I'm shit at it and it's not my bag. I'm not interested in it. It's not my thing. I'm a coach. You know what I mean? And it's okay. But the other thing that comes to mind as well, Vipassana meditation. I'm not going to go into big detail, but this
Sure.
Buddhist Vipassana meditation, I did a 10-day retreat in May, and I've been doing like follow up. Uh, 1 day retreats here and there, and I've got a 3-day one coming up in December. Now, the reason why
Brilliant.
I'm bringing this up is because a big principle of that meditation during the meditation practice and also as a way of life is not reacting to things. Yeah, so I try and keep it super brief, but there's key principles number one principle is this too shall pass. There's a word called anicca, which is a Buddhist word, and it basically means this too shall pass. Whatever challenge, curveball, the recording not working, this too
Yeah,
shall pass. It's gone in a moment. You've told me it's gone. We move
yeah,
on. What can we? And there's a thing there about problem solution. This is the problem. What's the solution? The solution is we just jump on again the following Friday if we're both free, which we did.
yeah,
You know, done. What? There's no point reacting or wasting time and energy and emotion to it, as we said about keeping your battery full. And then there's another principle with this particular meditation. They call it craving and aversion. Yeah, and
okay,
it's basically so during the meditation practice and also as a general life principle is that you don't react to cravings. Number one, which is food, the
sure,
booze, all that sort of stuff. The dopamine fixes. So you don't react to cravings, and then you don't react to aversion. Now, aversion is more things like the distractions, the social media, the spinning on the Instagram and everything like that. So the idea is that, this is our path, this is our mission, our purpose, for us is coaching men, right? This is our purpose.
absolutely,
And how do we stick to that? We don't react to craving and aversion. Yeah, we stick to this path as best we can. We're still humans and we're
sure.
fallible human beings. We'll still fall off of it. We will react to stuff because we're human. And if we weren't human, if we were robotic, how boring would life be if we were just all robots, right?
Absolutely. And we don't all fill our battery 100%
No,
every day. So
no,
when it's
no, no,
low,
no.
you're not going to have that same capability,
Shit happens. Shit
Yeah,
happens,
yeah,
right? And at that time, your guard is down, and you will react to stuff, and you will eat more, or you will drink more if that's your thing, and you might fall into arguments. And I will say here is that just general meditation, even if it's not Buddhist meditation, just general meditation gives you a few seconds to react to things as they come in. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and those feel like an eternity in the moment. Yeah. Like when you sent the message to me that the recording didn't work or whatever, you know, if I was having a rough period and I was let's say, or the old me who's juggling 15 things at once, his
yeah,
battery's not full, he's a bit niggly, he's a bit moody, he's reacting to everything, he's fight or flight, you know, I could have reacted completely different. I could have said, well, time has passed, see you later, and I'll never talk to you again because you've messed up or whatever,
sure.
so yeah, key message there for me is meditation. Like, I really suggest it. That's a big benefit. It just gives you that little period of time to react to the curveballs as they come in, and the curveballs will never end. They will always keep
Absolutely.
coming.
Absolutely. You mentioned something at the very beginning, Paul, and I didn't know what you meant by it. It was sort of the lower self and the higher self, if I got it right. Do you
Yeah,
mind sort of I like to follow up on that and understand what does that mean?
yeah. So without going into a huge amount of detail, which to give that subject justice is required, but I'll give you a snippet of so uh, the whole identity thing.
Yeah,
So I could even tell you the other, like the the sequence of beliefs. Um, Beliefs lead to emotions, lead to actions, lead to lifestyle, and the jackpot is identity. The jackpot is showing up as the best version of yourself. Now, the best version of yourself is obviously your higher self, is what I call it. The best version of you, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Um, there's so many different ways I can explain this. Let me explain it in terms of a
sure.
vibe way, because I've been using that again. There's a thing called levels of consciousness, which shows where you're vibing, and it's
Yeah,
literally a scale of 0 to 1,000. At the bottom, you've got all the low level emotions such as shame, grief, anger, frustration. And there's no judgment on this. This is just the way it is.
sure.
Sometimes we're operating or we're vibing at that level. So when people describe the lower self or it's not the worst version of themselves, it's the version of themselves that disappoints them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Me 6 years ago, the guy that wasn't making the right decisions. Well, if you say him, his beliefs were wrong, his emotions were wrong, his actions were wrong, his lifestyle was wrong, clearly, because he was just boozing. and
Yeah.
therefore his identity became a result of that. So he was clearly operating as a very low vibe version of myself. Whereas you could describe now that I'm operating at least 50% minimum of my capability,
Yeah.
but more than likely operating at 80 to 100. And we assign lots of different kind of characteristics to either of it. We do visualizations on it and everything. And there's NLP stuff that I've got involved that, we remove the lower self and all this sort of stuff. We tap into the subconscious. But ultimately, what we're trying to do with this is to help us to show up as the very best version of ourselves, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And that's what I would describe the higher self. And but the lower self is still part of you. It's not about you make that version of you disappear and you'll never see him again if you want to personalize it.
Sure.
He'll always try and come back in and he'll whisper in your ear and he'll be saying, it's okay, man. It's just me and you. Have another biscuit. Have another packet of biscuits. And for me, it would be, you know, for me, it'd be, you can have one beer, brother. It's all right. Nobody will know. It's only me and you, man.
Hmm.
Arm around the shoulder, whispering in the ear. It's all good, and give you that kind of rose tinted glasses on this lower way of operating and lower way of vibing.
You've made me think of two things, Paul, as you were talking, is when you talk about your old self,
Mm.
you talk about he or him. So you've done a very clever thing in my mind, which you've sort of disassociated with that
Yeah,
identity of
I
who you
have.
used to be. And you
I
even
have.
use he or him, not as if it's you, and I'm not trying to put it back in any way, but I think that's actually a very good mental space somehow. And did you decide to do that, or did it just
Yeah,
happen naturally as a
yeah.
consequence of your journey?
That's what the process is. That's what the process of I say removal of lower self, but it isn't removal. We still need to have compassion and empathy for that guy. I feel pity for that guy. I feel sorry for him because a lot of what was going on wasn't his fault. He was doing his best in the circumstances, yeah,
Yeah.
and his decisions and the booze and all that was a result of him just not making the right decisions, like we said, and so it's not hatred or removal or like we're not removing the demons or whatever, but definitely there's if you want to say compartmentalization where he's separated in my mind. And I'm super, 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 super aware of when he comes out and he tries to take over the show again because he does,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
you know. Um, and I know when I'm sort of operating in that lower vibe, I can like that's the thing on this healing journey or this like personal development journey as well. If you do it right and you've got the right people around you, you learn more and more and more, and you become so sensitive in a good way to your own self awareness and when you're not vibing at the right sort of levels, and then obviously finding the tools what to do about it.
Yeah, you said something, and I like that, and I appreciate that you're sort of very conscious of it, and that's
Mm.
probably part of the day-to-day discernment that you have to make in order to keep in your higher self, as you call it, rather than your lower self. There
Yeah,
was something you mentioned, and I think it's really related to the lower self, is we have to, so I don't know what way, is to overcome shame around loads of things. And I
yeah,
learned something. I just want to share a quick definition. It was
yeah,
from Brené Brown.
yeah,
Is there are four definitions. One is embarrassment, the other one is guilt, the next one is humiliation, and the
yeah,
final one is shame. I don't know if you've
yeah,
heard this one.
yeah, yeah,
But embarrassment is when you do something, but you just feel nervous, you sweat or you go red or you laugh or people do their things, but it's just human
yeah,
nature. You may be uncomfortable.
yeah,
Guilt, and the way she described it, I think was fantastic, is you've done something wrong or you haven't done something you should. So it's a good feeling to actually keep you back on track and bring you to rectifying what you did in some way.
yeah,
Now, this is the interesting part, the darker we get. Humiliation is when someone tries to make you feel bad. And, I could say, oh, I don't like how you're looking today. You're horrible, or this, that, or the other. Humiliation in itself isn't harmful, but if we believe even 1% of it, we
Yeah,
turn it into shame and we actually condemn ourselves. So you mean
yeah,
someone could say anything to me now, and just since I learned the definition, because I don't believe it, I don't shame myself. And it's
yeah,
funny that just understanding certain definitions can give you protection to realize that when someone else is saying something, well, if I don't believe it, I can walk around feeling just as happy as I was beforehand. And that road out of shame, and this is just one understanding that's a definition, and there's a million roads out of shame, if you want to call it, is
yeah.
very helpful to coming from what you call your lower self to your higher self. Do you deal with
Yeah.
that in some way and shame?
Yeah, so I mean, right here, I've just actually while talking, I pulled out the level of consciousness sheet, and we've got shame is at the bottom. Well, death is below shame.
Okay, well,
De- 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 de-
I'm
de-
not sure that's an option, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, death is zero on the levels of consciousness sheet from zero to
Sure.
1,000. Shame is next at 20, and humiliation. Yeah, the emotional state of shame. You're right, is humiliation. The view of life is miserable. What do you need to do? You need to take action. What do we experience? We experience inaction because we're ashamed, right? So we don't take action. We hide away. You know.
Absolutely.
Um, so and there's something powerful you've touched on there is about um, the humiliation. I think you said the humiliation can only become shame if we believe what other people are saying. And
Exactly.
there's something I show clients early on is the locus of control is basically that. We can only control ourselves, really. We can only control our own actions, our own thoughts, our own behaviors. But we can't control anything outside. We can influence, but we can't control it. Therefore, if we can't control it, why should we let it within our kind of field, as it were? And it's almost like I used to express this a couple of years ago in terms of like we've almost got a force field around us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something can only affect you if you allow it within that force field. Yeah,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
allow those things or allow yourself to believe, as you said, what other people are saying. If it's like bit of banter on the field of dreams. On this
Yeah.
where we train outside. I was having some banter with the trainer the other day, and he was trying to be hurtful. He was trying to use hurtful words in banter, and he was doing it deliberately to see if he could trigger me. And I was like, whatever, man. Like, you say what you want. Like, I don't
Yeah.
believe what you're saying anyway. Whatever you says can't affect me because I'm not interested in like your opinion of me. It's not my business. Your opinion of me. So there's no, you can't. And he's like, I can't, can I? I said, no, you can't. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You remind me, Paul, of and I didn't know why for ages. My favorite book for a long time was Dracula. And now I know most people have seen the movie, but I don't think so many people have read the book. But when you read the book, there are concepts that people know that a vampire can't come in unless you invite them in.
yeah,
And that kind of, I must have read it 20 years ago or so. I thought, is this a book on psychology or is it about vampires? Because
mm,
it's almost the same as you can't be shamed unless you open the door and actually invite them in.
yeah,
So for me, the book was the best psychology, and that's just one example,
mm,
best book of psychology on how to protect yourself. And
mm,
a vampire is just a representation of a bad idea. But you can
mm,
say, well, no, you're not coming in. And it's that simple. That
mm,
was probably, and I still rate it as my favorite book of all time, even though it was written over 100 years ago by an Irish guy in Cork.
mm, mm,
And it's amazing that we forget that sometimes. People will watch the big epic movies and all the gore and the blood and this, that, and the other. But if you read the
mm.
book, you realize he's actually showing you, if you read it, how to protect yourself from, from things outside of your sphere, because your
Yeah,
house is your home and it's your choice to open the door or the window or whatever else it is.
yeah. And your mind, the biggest thing for me as well is the mind, isn't it? Like protect your mind, protect your mind. Don't allow this toxicity in. And it's a real big thing. And like, and there's something there about you don't know what you don't know. Unfortunately, the people that don't go on this growth journey, and I'm not again, there's no judgment here, but we're already within the sort of 10% or 5% that actually look to change, look to grow, look to do something, try something different. And it's only those people that then start to become aware of these things. And like, as I say, unfortunately, you don't know what you don't know. So I'm visualizing sheep here. I'm visualizing people going around not even thinking about what they're doing, not, and just reacting, like you said earlier, just reacting to everything left, right, and center, and and essentially operating on those things of shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear,
Yeah.
desire, anger, you know, and then making
Um,
them wrong decisions, like we said earlier, looking for the instant gratification because they're not happy, essentially.
yeah. I think what I've decided, or what I'm deciding at the moment, is there's so much to know in the world. We can never possibly know everything. But the
Mm.
one thing that's happened to me is I just call it, I'm reducing my ignorance. I'm on an ignorance reduction journey.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it feels much
yeah,
more appropriate to what I'm doing, because I'm never going to,
yeah,
I'm not a God or omnipresent. So I'm never going to know
yeah,
everything. So those tiny 0.0000 percentages of increase in knowledge
yeah,
for me are really just decreases in ignorance. And it just
yeah.
feels, I don't know, more appropriate to me. I don't know how you think about that.
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds like a never-ending journey, which it is. Like I'll always say, I'm always a student, and I welcome new ideas. I welcome people's opinions. But I'll soon put up that boundary if it's BS. If, as I said, if it's toxicity or BS, you then quickly so will know that's not for me. You're not my type of person, and I wish you well, but see you later. And you got to be okay with that. Um, where, but if it's the reverse, if you're really vibing, um, if there's real, how would I say, if there's real benefit to both parties, if you're vibing on a in a good way, then great. Like
Brilliant.
give some more. But at the same time, as I said, you've still got to be ruthless with your
Yeah, yeah,
own
yeah.
with your own lack of toxicity, if that's the way to put it.
Well, there's one more thing I'd like to say about this, and then I'd love to hear more about, where people can find you in that. But
Mm.
I think what's very attractive about what you're doing, Paul, is you're not a 25-year-old who's wealthy, in fantastic shape, jumping around in their Ferrari or their yacht or whatever else. Your life is not perfect,
Mm.
but you seem to be on a journey of transformation. You're somewhere along that road, but you're along the road far enough for to be a great journey companion for someone else to be able to talk to, and you help them with
Yeah,
different things. And I like that very human, humble approach to it. It's more, I'm in the mud with you, and sometimes you actually are in the mud when I look at your videos. That is, it just feels more authentic. You don't have all the answers yet, but you're working towards them, and you're sharing ways that you think can help. So I just want to commend you for that, because I think
thank you.
that's a very authentic way to communicate with people.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm not a guru. I never wanted to be, and I never will be a guru. I don't have all the answers, but I do believe that people have their own answers from within, and it's about us empowering them to get to those answers. They're in there somewhere, and it's mostly somewhere hovering between the subconscious and the conscious. It's like a computer hard disk. There's a few gremlins in there. There's a
Yeah,
few
yeah.
viruses in there that just need rewiring and tweaking. And but I'll always be in the trenches to a degree. I'll always be like sleeves rolled up and shoulder to shoulder. Because I'm on the journey with my clients. I'm like I've played with like groups one to one, but I keep going back to one because I love the deep transformations, and I love being in the trenches with the guys, and and kind of in answer to your question, where am I compared to them, is I'm only just slightly ahead of them on the journey, however you want to kind of
Sure.
describe that. I'm only a bit ahead, but I'm enough ahead to have the torch, the map, to know where the pitfalls are, because I've been there and I've done. It's very rare that I'll have a client come on board and say that he's been through stuff, or have family that's been through XYZ that I haven't seen or been part of or helped somebody with. So, and then the final piece for me with that is theory triggers me. You know, if somebody speaking theory and you know that they haven't lived it and
Yeah,
you know that they haven't got real true life experience, you
you can
feel it.
feel it. Yeah,
You
yeah,
feel it.
absolutely. Yeah,
You
yeah.
feel it. And like it only takes a few questions to get more information and you're suddenly like, you know what, this person hasn't been through what I'm going through, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so
We all
and that's
have
a big thing.
bullshit detectors, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And I do reject clients on that basis if I know that I'm genuinely not the right person for them, and I might refer them to another coach or whatever. And if it's not a fit and I really can't help them, like I'm trying to
Sure.
think of some examples. Like let's say if it's like business is one of the pillars that I deal with.
Yeah.
Um, but if they come on board and they say, look, I'm trying to build my business and I want a business coach, for example, I say, I'm not your man. You know, I can help you build a strong foundation across all the pillars, get your health right, get your fitness right, you know, get your mindset right, get some enjoyment in your life, improve your relationships and improve your business a bit. You know, I can do that for you, but I'm not a business strategist coach, I think is what I'm trying to say there. So,
Absolutely. Fair
you
enough.
know,
So maybe well, first of all, I want to thank you for your time the second
thank you.
time.
Thank you.
And yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation actually as much, and we discovered new things about each other
Well, it
as
feels
well.
different. I mean, this is like it's gone on a different tangent, but that's all good, right? It's just flowed. It's not. This isn't scripted.
No,
So
not at all. Not at all. We haven't put a script or even questions together or anything for this. And I think
I'm
we
just gone
had
with
such a
it.
good conversation the last time and this
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Paul, thank you again. Where could people find you, and what are maybe the most common reasons that people come and find you? One, maybe spontaneous, they just find you, but then what are the most common reasons that people could get help that you deal with all the time with your clients?
Yeah. So the easiest place to find me is Facebook, and I think I'm going to give you a link. I think I've given
Sure.
you a link actually to Facebook is the easiest place. I've got a Sober October group. I've got a men's group, and then I've got a 5 day challenge group, which is still open for more 5 day challenges in the future. And they're free to start off with, you know, to kind of get in my world, get in my community. Um, who's my guy? I help men between the ages of 35 to 60
Yeah.
um, to fix their mindset is the first thing. Mindset is the constant between all of this, and I'm fascinated with the human brain, why we do what we do, the motivations, discipline, human behavior, as I say, um, identity, all of that stuff. I'm fascinated, and I'm forever learning about that in real life. Yeah, not
Yeah.
necessarily reading books, but testing myself and trying new clients, trying new programs, trying new tools. So we're forever figuring out, and I'm super curious. I'm like a dog with a bone when there's a challenge, problem
Yeah.
solution, you know. And so he's likely to be be unfulfilled. I'm going to say be unhappy, but I've also got high performers who just want to bring it to the next level. What they're trying to do, they're likely to want to lose weight. They're likely to get fitter. They've probably got a coping mechanism, whether it be booze, whether it be a bit of coke, stuff like that. And ultimately, what they want to do, they just want to improve their level of operation, if you will, that vibe we're talking about. You
Yeah.
know, they want to operate at the best version of themselves mentally, physically, and emotionally. And there might be a slant upon health or business, or you know, I've helped guys with divorce as well. But they're all underpinned by the pillars that we're always running things with. The 5 pillars of Ember, which I mentioned last time. Ember being the flame, it's almost like handing over a baton to the new
Yeah.
client. And the 5 pillars are energy, mindset, business, enjoyment, relationships. So it's a holistic approach to
Gotcha.
help who I was 6 years ago to improve himself. And I'll never let that guy down. That's my biggest why. And that I said last time that gives me hairs on the back of my neck as well when I say that. So
Well, what you make me think as we finish up, and I just want to say thanks, is if that's happened in the last 6 years, I'm looking forward to meeting you in 2030 and see where the hell you're going to be, man.
Yeah, man. Well, I'll still be in the trenches. That ain't gonna change. And you know, I'll be doing. I'm pretty sure I'll be doing the same thing, but maybe just a slight, it just impacting more people. I'm not even going to say at a higher level. I'm just going to say I will be impacting more people and continuing with my backpack on that hero's journey, going around the hero's journey,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
picking up the trials and failures, and you know, failing often, especially with technology.
yeah.
And yeah, and just trying to continue helping that guy who needs our help, man. The guy who's hiding away, the guy who's upset, who's unfulfilled, who's sad, um, and who's got so much huge potential untapped.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate your time, and it's been an enjoyable hour. For sure, I would like to meet you again before
Yeah, yeah,
2030, but
yeah, for sure.
it's an exciting journey ahead now.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank
having
you
me
very
on,
much,
man.
sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.